Not realizing who was in control of the situation, I naively informed Marie that I had cleared my calendar. We went back and forth with her insisting that I must have more important things to do than to observe her. It went on for a while. Feeling sorry for me in this unfair fight, the sophomore boy sitting next to me finally leaned over and said, "Dude, I would really go if I were you." After that, my observations of Marie happened on her terms, with the principal standing in the second floor hallway around the corner so she could not see me. Certainly not dignified, but one does need to make space for greatness. Later, as Roberta recounted, Marie and I bonded over one of her many passions as a teacher, public speaking. Marie, as the speech advisor for our chosen student speakers at graduation, she served in that role, and the weeks before the big event, those students and the principal would practice speeches for Marie. I will assure you it was not only the students who had multiple drafts. Let's just say she brought a new definition to the term critical feedback. At the end of the day, however, I will tell you that she made every one of us, the students and myself, better and more confident. She held us to high standards and made us reach them. When she finally complimented one of my speeches at the end of graduation night, I understood what it must have been like to be one of her students who had at last learned to develop a cogent essay. I knew I had pleased a master coach. And I'm betting she might have given me a B+ that night. Her highest compliment. While Marie will always be remembered for high standards, I am far more likely to recall the way she exuded joy in the way she went about things, especially when they involved Simsbury High students. I remember sitting with her at Simsbury High School dinner theater with her raving about both the dessert from Tom Centino's students and the jazz being played simultaneously. She was the only faculty member at every orchestra concert. At 80 years old, she was still taking field trips with mock trial and running blood drives. Needless to say, she beamed on the evenings when we inducted new National Honor Society students or recognized our Simsbury scholars. And nobody else was allowed to mix the famous Miller punch that punctuated those celebrations. Finally, I'll always remember her turn as Sister Mary Marie in the Simsbury High School Theater Department's production of Nonsense. Who takes on something like that at that stage of life? Marie Miller did, of course, and when Sue Lemke and I had a chance to visit with Marie a few days before she passed, we laughed hardest about the nonsense of nonsense. Yes, Marie's piercing laughter and her wonderful smile are symbols of her approach to life. While Marie certainly would have preferred that I find a quote from Hawthorne or Melville for these remarks, I'll turn to another work that she loved to teach, and it's my favorite too, F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. This is the scene where Nick first meets the magnetic Jay Gatsby. Allow me the liberty to change one he to a she and see if this doesn't capture the way that Marie's smile made you feel. She smiled understandingly, much more than understandingly. It was one of those rare smiles with a quality of eternal reassurance in it that you may come across 4 or 5 times in life. It faced, or seemed to face, the whole external world for an instant and then concentrated on you with an irresistible prejudice in your favor. It understood you just as you wanted to be understood, believed in you as you would like to believe in yourself, and assured you that it had precisely the impression of you that at your best you hoped to convey. That's the smile that Marie brought for so many years to her friends, her colleagues, and most importantly, her grateful students at Simsbury High. Ali and Jolie, we thank you for sharing her with this community that she not only loved but made better. There are many, many people who helped build the reputation that Simsbury High School now enjoys as one of the very best public high schools in the country, but I absolutely believe that your mother is at the center of that legacy. Marie, we love you, we remember you, and we thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Denise Temperilli. Michelle had asked me to speak, and believe it or not, even though I'm a teacher, this terrifies me. I am not a good public speaker. I was never a student of Marie's public speaking class, but she's a very big part of who I am today. The best decision I ever made was in the middle of 8th grade when I decided, this English class is too easy for me. I always tested out of what they were doing, and I would go to the library and I would be bored, so I elected to go into honors English. That was what set me off to the path that leads me here. Back then, her class was the easy one. Mrs. Miller was the easy one because she was between Mrs. Stefrak and Mr. Klingler. So she was a breath of fresh air, very supportive, not as intimidating as the other two. I love traveling, I love literature. Funny story, many years ago I was traveling in California, and my love of literature came from her class, particularly American literature. I was in Steinbeck country, and this was way back in the 90s when there was no Steinbeck Museum, but there was this little room where they had some collections and people were gathering, and I just walked in off the street and I was curious. And they said, "Oh, are you a teacher?" And I said, "Yes." "Oh, well, they're all meeting in the back room." So I went in the back and listened to this wonderful speaker, and at the end, everyone is turning and saying, "Well, what do you teach?" And they were all saying, college this and literature, and I said, high school biology. He said, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I have these wonderful English teachers, particularly Mrs. Miller. And like all the others, I can't call her Marie. Maybe I could refer to her as Marie Miller, but the last name always came with the first. And I think that's because of the respect that she commands, because of who she is, the integrity of the person and the big heart that she has. Not because she has power, although we know she has power, but it's just her big heart. She's a magnificent woman. I know that she always loved wearing pins. When I was traveling around, I saw this gorgeous pin in South Africa that I had to bring back for her. She's just a very important part of my life, and I just needed to say thank you, Mrs. Miller.
When I was listening to Neil particularly talk about observing Marie, it reminds me as well when I was principal. And one of the things she said to me one time is, "I never want you to let me know if you're coming into my classroom." I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, don't put it on your schedule. Don't let me know if you're coming in to observe." And I said, "Marie, you're a terrific teacher. What are you worried about?" She said, "If I know you're coming in to watch me, I won't sleep all night the night before." And so I never let her know I was coming. And she was brilliant, of course, to watch. We've had wonderful stories. This has just been terrific. And we just wanted to have a chance or make an opportunity for any of you who are there, who want to add anything and share anything with us. We'd be happy to hear your remarks. So if there's anybody who wants to come forward, please do.
My name is Mattie Banshaff. I'm the parent of 2 children who learned to read, to write, to think, and to be more human beings, better human beings because of Mrs. Miller. But she did extend past the classroom, and I just wanted to share this one thing. When my daughter, Amy Banshaff, was going to get married in Massachusetts, we applied and got a certificate for Mrs. Miller to be the solemnizer of the wedding. And here she is marrying my daughter and her husband.
Anyone else want to follow that?
At some point in my high school years, I wrote a poem, and it is called An Ode to My Sophomore English Teacher. And it is about Mrs. Miller, and it has a drawing, a caricature of her, I believe it's done by Brian Strayaski, and it is printed somewhere. I'm not sure if it's the 1997 yearbook, a copy of Spectrum, somewhere. I have searched or ransacked my house looking for it. I don't know where it is. If anyone comes across it, I know it was published somewhere, and I don't remember where, but that's what it's called, and somewhere. They exist in the world somewhere.
Well, that's our charge, is to find that. We'll be in the library. They're out, all the yearbooks are there. Anyone else? Well, you've been a wonderful, caring audience. Thank you for being here and listening to the stories. I know Andy and Neil and Michelle and Roberta. Today has been everything we dreamed it would be. Such a tribute, such a joy. And before we end, we have our closers. Because Marie, as much as she was a teacher, perhaps a mother, perhaps a grandmother to so many, her own two daughters were so special to her. And all of us who knew her always remember her referring to her daughters and the pride she had in the two of you. You were such a joy to her. And
Microphone.
what's that?
Microphone.
Microphone. I'm sorry. I use my principal voice. Thank you. My principal voice through the mic. Anyway, of all the things we hope to do today, certainly what we hoped most was that you two, as her daughters, would hear these tributes. And you have. And now, you're here. It's your turn. Thank you for being here and arranging this and providing this celebration. Jolie and Ellie.
Thank you. Jolie is going first. She's the oldest. But I just wanted to remind people that the picture of the wedding, many other things about Mom's life are, you can spend some time afterwards looking in the books, the photograph albums, the yearbooks. Maybe we can find that poem. Mom kept all the yearbooks. So if it's in the yearbook, we can find your poem. So we'll go looking. Jolie.
So I just want to thank everyone for coming and giving Mom her proper send-off. It means so much to her. I wanted to share a poem that I wrote about sort of the end of Mom's life because it illustrates how much she loved life. So the poem starts, "My mom loved life, and so my mom loved her life alert button. She lived by the motto, when in doubt, press it. Once she even pressed it at 2 in the morning because she'd forgotten to take her nighttime medication. The pills were on the kitchen table in their pill box, but she had already buried herself in her bed under the blankets. The paramedics came and graciously gave her the pills, all except her fluid pill, because that would keep you up all night, dear. Another time, my mom fell while pulling out her chair on the deck just as I was serving her lunch. She fell backward on her bum with an ominous thud. "Should I press the button?" she asked. "No," I said, not wanting to accept reality. "Okay," she said, and pressed it.
That would be the stubborn mom. So, it's always interesting being daughters of an icon, right? Because we had, both of us are graduates of Simsbury High, Jolie in 73 and me in 75. I actually had mom as a teacher. There was a kind of special papal dispensation that was put out so that I could take her class. Someone else corrected the subjective essays, Mr. Klingler, so I got double-double. But I had her as a teacher. But I also had her as a mom. And I also spent, all of us, Jolie and I, and my father, spent a lot of time with her thinking about how she was herself, just being herself at the dinner table, being herself preparing for class, being herself working late when we went to bed. She ate a lot of popcorn to stay awake, to correct essays. Everything I know about popcorn, and many different kinds I learned from my mother. But also, I learned from her, I think, a lot about the ways of public speaking. She had this in her class. She would teach that public speeches do many different kinds of work. And one of the most important speeches she always talked about was this thing called a speech of cohesion, right? The speech that you give each other to bring each other together, to remind you that you are together, that sometimes we need those reminders, and that today we are speakers of cohesion. And in that, I want to also remember the ways in which my mom was a talker, just a talker, right? And for Jolie and me, that telephone that Jack spoke about sometimes interrupted our lives, but it was also part of our lives. Because the way that mom was a talker is that she was a real talker. She was a talk to strangers talker. She was a talk to the people you walk down the street and meet talker. And that kind of talking drove me crazy as a kid. Drove me utterly crazy, because you could stand in the grocery store. You're just at Fitzgerald's. You're just there to get the milk and the peaches. And 25 minutes later, she has talked to 7 people. And then she's going to talk, Mom was going to talk to the checkout people. And then she was going to talk to the folks that you met on the way across the parking lot. And all you were like, Mom, we're the home. We were just going to get some milk. And then all of a sudden, it was an hour later, and then we would get home. And then when I was 12, and I would bring my friends home, and she would talk to my friends, and they would think that she was cooler than I was, right? And then when I was 21, she wanted to talk to everyone at my college graduation. And when I was 30, she wanted to talk to everyone at Amnesty International, from the receptionist. And Amnesty had a security door, because they were a human rights organization. And it took a long time to get through security when my mom talked to everybody. And so it turns out also, though, that now I'm a talker too. I talk to strangers. It drives my kids crazy, Cyrus and Milo, who are sitting in the front row. But I want to think about the ways, when I was listening to all of us, that talking matters for all of us. It's the way that Mom talked to strangers, to friends, to students, to us, to bus drivers, ticket takers, the old lady who lived downstairs from me in Hell's Kitchen, the dean of the law school, and the butcher behind the counter at Kane's Market, who brought us the coffee and tea. She talked, she listened, she remembered. But this talking, and this is something that I'm spending a lot of time thinking about now in our time, her talking was generous. As people have said, it was optimistic. It was also democratic. It was about bringing in people. It was about talking to people so they could feel like they were worth talking to and being listened to. And partly it was also, as Michelle said, about talking to people to make sure that we were all awake to the day, that we were all in it. And sometimes that kind of talking was a kind of relentless optimism. I have to say that there were mornings like Michelle, I'd be like, oh, Mom, please, just let me be grim and depressed. God damn it. I need to be mad. I need to be, and she would be, but there's going to be something that's going to happen that you don't know that's going to be okay. And that kind of optimism is the piece that I think we're also feeling here. And that kind of talking to people in strange places at odd moments on buses and constantly remembering also is a form of this thing called connecting. And when I was talking with various friends around my school and with people that I have come to know through Amy and my partner's father and stepmother live in California. And they told us that my mom taught 2 of their kids' favorite teachers in Berkeley. And then I was at a Human Rights Watch meeting last spring and chatting with a public health professor and discovered that my mother had taught her. And then I found out there's guidance counselors in New Haven who my mom taught in the school and who have talked to other people about talking to me. And through this I came to understand that mom was really the most, without any Facebook, no social media, right? I mean, she learned the phone, Jack, but she never learned the email. There was no Facebook, there was no social media. She was the most networked person I know. But she was networked in a way that I think we all want to be networked, which is networked in community. And networked in a community of people who care and listen. And then I want to think about what we did today about caring and listening and make that our kind of cohesion to each other. And then think about what Sarah did in singing about a gift, right? Because she sang simple gifts, and we all thanked Mom for the gift that she gave us. But by thanking her, we gave a gift to each other. And that connected gift, I think, is a strength. It's a power, it's a tribute. And I want to thank all the people that made this possible, that Jolie and I could work with Simsbury High School to make this gift to each other, that we could work especially hard. Michelle Henry, Roberta Mullane came to us and said, what can we do to make it happen? That these gifts that Mom gave are remembered as gifts we give each other. And this is today, and this is the gift we give each other, and this is the gift we give back to Mom, Marie Miller. Thank you. A special thanks. Michelle, none of this would happen without Michelle and Roberta, longtime colleagues, unbelievable energizer bunnies of organizing phone calls with the principal's office, the administrators, the janitors, and everybody who made this possible. So we have thanks to them, thanks to Dennis for emceeing. We are very grateful that we can now actually just hang out and talk to each other and look and read and eat. And we invite you and talk and share this space. And again, thank you all. And please sign the book, because the gift will continue to talk. We will, and please thank each other and thank you. Bye-bye.